I don't know about you, but when I watch a Nancy Meyers rom-com, I can't help but feel like the real love story is taking place in the background, in the interior design. Like, as all the characters are falling in love with each other, I'm falling in love with the decor. And there's a lot of inspiration to pull from here that we can apply to our apartments. So in this video, I'm gonna give you a bunch of Nancy Meyers inspired decor ideas, and I'll show you how some of them could come together in a bedroom design I created. And I'll share what I think is a potential pitfall with this style and what you can do to avoid it. And if you're new here, my name is Steffi, and this is Hilo, and on this channel I talk about small apartment styling, cozy living, some of the more niche, alternative, and fantasy styles, and the joys of living alone. So if you're into that, consider subscribing and giving this video a like. So what is the Nancy Meyers aesthetic, and why is it such a sought-after interior design style? Like, what exactly are we chasing when we're going for this look? It's cozy comfort. It's elegant, but not intimidating. It has a lot of traditional elements, but it's not stuffy or pretentious. It's a lot of collected items, effortlessly yet thoughtfully arranged. Open shelves, slip-covered furniture, lots of books, floral artwork and fabric, and so many lampshades. Lampshades everywhere. And hydrangeas. Always hydrangeas. It's actually kind of hard to distill the Nancy Meyers aesthetic into its individual parts. It's almost more of an overall feeling, you know, a specific brand of hominess, and you know it when you see it. A Nancy Meyers set feels alive. Like an actual human being lives there and interacts with the space on a daily basis and collects things for it over time and does so with a sense of romance. And these interiors almost feel like living, breathing beings, as real as the characters in the movies. Like, you can tell that actual character development is thought through when styling these sets. Yet at the same time, just like the characters, there is a sense of fiction here. It's a fictional, idealistic kind of beauty that I'm not sure I personally relate to. And that's kind of an interesting conflict, I feel, when I'm admiring the interiors of a Nancy Meyers movie. I love them, and I think they're masterfully done from a set design and storytelling perspective. And I think there's so much to glean for interior decor inspiration. Otherwise, I wouldn't be making this video. But maybe I'm just too much of a weird little goblin to fully relate to this style. Like, if I went for this look, I'd have to add my own little dark, moody twist to it. Like if Nancy Meyers did a vampire rom-com. That would be a little closer to my style. But Nancy Meyers movies couldn't be further from spooky vampire movies. They're warm, pleasant, fun, and very white. And I will say, in this day and age, the idea of the picture-perfect home full of exclusively white, heteronormative people does feel a bit dated, and like a world that doesn't really exist anymore, or never really did exist. The Nancy Meyers ideal in a lot of ways feels more like a fantasy than any of the fantasy aesthetics I've covered. And this is not a moral indictment of the movies or the aesthetic, but it is something to contend with when we draw from the beauty of this style. And this leads me to the potential pitfall you could easily run into when creating a Nancy Meyers inspired room. Nancy Meyers movies look so beautiful because they have genius designers thoughtfully curating pieces that make the space feel alive, interesting, and personal to the character living in it. You are not a fictional character. You have your own interests and desires and experiences and culture that should be reflected in your space. And I think it would be very easy to do this style for its aesthetic alone without considering the substance behind it that makes it so beautiful. Frankly, a Nancy Meyers inspired home without the substance of thoughtfully placed personal touches would probably end up just looking like a boring suburban model home. Just empty beauty meant for mass appeal. I think to truly achieve this style, you need to curate your apartment as thoughtfully as a Nancy Meyers designer does for the characters they're designing for. Because that's really what makes this style so impactful. It feels alive. So make your apartment feel alive with the personal touches that could only be curated for your unique character. And for inspiration, I found some Instagram accounts that do a wonderful job of tapping into the Nancy Meyers aesthetic without falling into the boring, generic model home trap. Because they're clearly decorating like they're the main characters in their homes. You have Lena's Cottage Home Garden, who nails the cozy abundance of mixed patterns, collected over time styling, and unpretentious sophistication that are all hallmarks of the Nancy Meyers aesthetic. Her home leans more on the cottage side of this style, a la the cottage from The Holiday, and I can definitely feel Kate Winslet's character's presence in here. Don't you? I mean, it's obviously not one for one the same styling as the Holiday Cottage, but it conveys a similar energy. It's a cozy hug of a home that feels so elegant, yet also so touchable, like a warm, lived-in elegance you can sink right into without fear of messing it up because it's meant to be touched. And that's very much the Nancy Meyers sensibility. One of the key reasons why it's considered a cozy style is because it's meant to be cozied up to, interacted with, lived in. And Lena's Cottage Home Garden looks like a space she can genuinely cozy up to with a warm cup of tea in one hand and a good book in the other. Ugh. The beauty of her styling doesn't hinge on neatness, it hinges on comfort. So I highly recommend giving her a follow. Her Instagram and all the others I'm about to talk about will be linked in the description. And then you have Cassandra Knoll Home, who walks you through exactly what she does to tap into the Nancy Meyers aesthetic in her space. And she does it beautifully while also maintaining her own style identity. So it's not necessarily a copy of this style, it's a mix. Good old Nancy is just one aspect at play here. You can see the quintessential Nancy Meyers vibe through her shelf styling, her use of patterns like classic stripes and country florals, but her personal style really shines through as its own thing. She's doing what I was talking about a few moments ago. She's using the Nancy Meyers aesthetic to enhance her home while still maintaining her own identity. The second you try to simply duplicate this style superficially is the second you lose what the style actually stands for. And Cassandra Knoll Home is nailing it. She's one of my favorite Instagram accounts actually, so definitely give her a follow for more stunning inspiration. Then there's Samantha Jo Interiors, who captures the airy elegance, but she also works in a dark, moody aspect that kind of subverts this style in an interesting way. Like, yeah, let's take Nancy Meyers to the dark side a little bit. Like I said, that's what's missing for me when it comes to this style, a sense of darkness. And I love how Samantha Jo Interiors transitions us from the light, airy living room into the dark, moody den. I love a space that makes you experience a kind of drastic transformation. This is what I mean when I talk about visual storytelling. In her home, we're experiencing a kind of character arc here, where the character starts as a bright-eyed, carefree ingenue, then descends into the dark abyss. That's a Nancy Meyers movie I'd like to see. Nancy Meyers' take on Dante's Inferno, maybe? Okay, Samantha Jo, you are making my mind go to weird places, but that's the mark of successful styling. If your space inspires weird stories in my head, you're doing something right. So follow Samantha Jo Interiors and see what stories her decor conjures up for you. Now look at Selena Marie Home. She's achieved a stunning balance of country cottage elements, vintage grandeur, and that light, airy vibe that I think Nancy Meyers would drool over. There's a kind of down-to-earth decadence here, you know? It has that very approachable, lived-in look of this style, but it's also so irresistibly elegant. I mean, this grand vintage mirror paired with oversized florals, the layers of texture in her living room, her flawlessly executed hydrangea game. It's all so elegant, yet it doesn't feel pretentious. And when you see what her home looked like before she worked her magic, it's shocking. She completely transformed this place from the more generic model home look I said this style can easily fall into if you approach it superficially, to a complete paradise. Anyway, follow Selena Maria Home for more inspiration. And then finally for inspiration, there's 4 Tiny Arrows, who has achieved peak Nancy Meyers shelf styling and hydrangea placement. And just an overall beautifully composed room. And I love a good gilded mirror moment. And 3 layered on top of each other, it's a level of graceful audacity I aspire to achieve in my daily life. And that graceful audacity is very apparent when you see what her home looked like when she first moved in. This is another case of a normal looking home being totally transformed into something special through the power of styling. And really, the idea of being gracefully audacious really does strike to the core of what the Nancy Meyers aesthetic represents. It's gracefully elegant, yet an audacious display of personality. Because remember, it's a character-centered style. And in the real world, that means it's a human-centered style. And 4 Tiny Arrows has gracefully and audaciously expressed her personality here through the lens of the Nancy Meyers aesthetic. I definitely recommend checking her Instagram out along with all the others I've shared. Again, they're all linked in the description. So now that we've established what the Nancy Meyers aesthetic is and what it looks like, let's get into the decor pieces I found for this look. Now, before I get into these, I have to reiterate, the only way to truly achieve this style is to incorporate your personal collected items and overall personality into the space. And that part's up to you. The stuff I'm about to show you will help you achieve the baseline aesthetic, but you need to inject it with the substance and make it yours. That's what this style really is all about. Decorating for the main character, which in your apartment is you. So with that being said, let's get into some decorative accents. I feel like this would be a nice little Nancy Meyers starter pack, you know? We have some copper pans that you could hang in your kitchen, which is both stylish and practical, a balance that is quintessentially Nancy Meyers. It also makes me think of the Practical Magic house as well, so copper pots and pans is always a beautiful choice regardless of genre. And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't include some faux hydrangeas in the mix. Now, I recognize that real, fresh hydrangeas would be ideal for this style, but you know, I prefer immortal flowers whose loss I will never have to mourn, so faux it is for me. But I can admit that fresh flowers would be more authentic to this style. And just overall, these are things that can get you started on the collected over time look of a Nancy Meyers interior. Little antique touches that harken to another time, like brass candlesticks, a gilded mirror, blue and white porcelain plates. And then this one is kind of fun. It's an antique mystery box I found on Etsy. So if you're open to a little surprise decor moment in your space, this could be an exciting way to do it. Just place the order, leave it up to fate, and see what you get. Sounds exhilarating. However you get your collection started, just keep in mind this isn't a race. The collected over time look is just that, collected over time. The Nancy Meyers aesthetic needs time to cook. And this style, without the substance of your personal touches, is just empty calories. So have patience and select items over time that mean something to you. And while you're at it, make sure you don't forget another key aspect to this aesthetic: lighting, lampshaded lighting in particular. Because like I said, a Nancy Meyers room is just full of lampshades. So look out for vintagey lamps with lampshades and also painted ceramic pieces. That's another visual theme you see throughout her movies. And lighting like this would add to the collected, elegant mishmash that's so characteristic of the Nancy Meyers look. All in all, your decorative accents should be personal, collected over time, and convey a sense of romance. After all, we're drawing from rom-coms for inspiration here. So embrace that and tell your own personal romantic comedy visual story in your space. Now let's get into some bed stuff. Of course, the name of the game here is comfort, coziness, warm and fuzzy feelings, floral quilts and throw pillows, stripes, ruffles. It's a down-to-earth femininity that makes a bedroom feel inviting and touchable. Like, you know how some styles feel like if you touch them the wrong way, they'll crumble? Like their stylishness hinges on perfectly placed perfection? That's not how Nancy Meyers rolls. Like I said earlier, when I was talking about Lena's cottage home garden, this style is meant to be touched. And if something is moved out of place, that only adds to the authenticity of this style. So the bedding and throw pillows are all about touch and texture and livability. And yes, this is a quilt version of my new West Elm curtains. I just couldn't resist because I love this pattern so much, and it happens to be very Nancy Meyers friendly in my opinion. And of course, I had to throw in a metal bed frame and headboard inspired by the cottage and the holiday. This video wouldn't be complete without it. And imagine if you were able to combine it with a mix of patterns, like I have stripes and florals in my head when it comes to Nancy Meyers, and then layered all together as the ultimate portrait of a cozy bed. That's what this style is all about. The bed should be comfy, layered, and inviting. Now for wall art, this is definitely an area where you want to incorporate your own personal touch, just like with the decorative accents. But to give you a sense of the type of art that gives off the air of this style, here are some options I found. When you watch a Nancy Meyers movie, there's definitely a type of art you'll typically see in the background. Botanical pieces arranged in a row is one of the most consistent visual motifs you'll see. There's also a lot of landscape art. It tends to be a very organic, nature-oriented art selection throughout all the films. I also think something like this coastal cottage is not only the type of art you'd see in the background, but it also just looks like a house in which a Nancy Meyers movie would be set. So it just inherently captures the spirit of this aesthetic in its subject matter, you know? And yes, to drive the hydrangea motif home, here's a literal depiction of hydrangeas. I don't know, I just feel like the hydrangea is so emblematic of the Nancy Meyers aesthetic. Like, I feel like her logo should be a hydrangea. So yeah, this piece just displays what I think is the ultimate symbol of this style, so it's a no-brainer. But of course, all of this is just supposed to give you an idea of the kind of wall art to look for aesthetically. At the end of the day, it comes down to your personal art selections that mean something to you. I recommend going to an antique store and see what speaks to you. So those were the Nancy Meyers inspired decor pieces I found. Now let me show you how some of them could come together in a bedroom design I created. I definitely took this as an opportunity to play with a lighter color palette because usually I do videos about darker styles and it was a fun challenge. And this looks like a bedroom I could really cozy up in. Yes, I would probably want to paint the walls black or something, but that's just me. And as you can see, there's a mix of different floral patterns and also a very Nancy Meyers inspired floral triptych above the bed. I definitely went for the Nancy Meyers emblems here. Botanical art, a vase of hydrangeas, and lampshades galore. Those three things are like the triforce of this aesthetic. They're just so emblematic of it. So I guess when in doubt, refer to the Nancy Meyers Triforce, and you can't go wrong. At the end of the day, there's really no right or wrong way to do this. This is my interpretation of the style, and yours could be totally different. I mean, think about the difference between Kate Winslet's cottage in The Holiday versus Cameron Diaz's California mansion. The beach house from Something's Gotta Give is totally different from the London townhouse in The Parent Trap. There's a lot of visual room here. That's why it's difficult to really pinpoint what the Nancy Meyers aesthetic is. It really is just kind of an overall feeling, an ambiance, and you just know it when you see it. And I think what it all comes down to is the thoughtfully selected and placed decor pieces that are firmly based on the characters. It is character-centric styling, and that's why it feels so alive. So that's really the main thing we can learn from the Nancy Meyers aesthetic. It's a master class on personal styling. It's just, in this case, they're fictional persons. And whatever your personal style is, if you approach your decor with the same level of thoughtfulness and care that a Nancy Meyers set designer gives to their decor choices, then you'll end up with an apartment that really feels like your home. And we should all be in love with our homes, even if we're renting them. Let me know in the comments, what is your takeaway from the Nancy Meyers aesthetic? I know a lot of us are more on the dark, moody side of things, fellow goblin girlies like me. But I think there's a lot to learn from the Nancy Meyers design ethos. So let me know what you think and what your takeaway is. At the very least, I bet you love the cottage from The Holiday as much as I do. And if you want some cottagecore specific decor ideas with a more dark, sinister twist, then I recommend you watch this video of mine next. It has tons of dark cottagecore decor ideas and could be a nice little dark palette cleanser after the light, frothy Nancy Meyers aesthetic. So give this a watch next.